The chamber was quiet, too quiet. Cameras rolled, pens hovered over notepads, and the nation's eyes were fixed on the exchange unfolding. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had just delivered one of her sharpest speeches, her voice rising with the cadence of passion, drawing on history, pain, and justice. The topic had been about economic inequality, but halfway through, her tone shifted. Her words cut into a deeper wound, one America has wrestled with for generations. A race. Senator, she said, her voice clear and unwavering. You refuse to acknowledge the role systemic racism has played in shaping these disparities. You look at policies, but you refuse to look at people. Isn't it convenient for you to ignore that race has always been at the heart of injustice in this country? The silence afterward was heavy. Everyone in that room felt the weight of her accusation, like a match being struck in a room full of gasoline fumes. Her supporters leaned forward in anticipation, and critics crossed their arms. The atmosphere was tense, the kind of tension that makes people hold their breath without realizing it. John Kennedy, known for his sharp wit and Southern charm, didn't rush to answer. He leaned back slightly in his chair, eyes narrowing, hands folded neatly in front of him. He wasn't one to take bait without thought. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he leaned into the microphone and asked one simple question. Congresswoman, do you believe we are defined more by the color of our skin, or by the content of our character? The words landed with the force of a thunderclap. It wasn't just a question, it was a challenge. A mirror turned back toward her. The room stirred. Some gasped quietly, others whispered, and a few scribbled furiously in their notebooks, knowing this was the moment that would dominate headlines. Ak blinked, momentarily caught off guard. She had expected pushback, maybe even denial, but not this. His question went deeper, beneath policy and politics, cutting into the very foundation of identity and morality. For a heartbeat, the debate wasn't just between two politicians, it was between two visions of America. Kennedy pressed on, his voice calm but firm. If we are to heal, if we are to rise as one nation, we must decide what matters most. Do we keep slicing ourselves into pieces, white and black, rich and poor, north and south, or do we build a country where a man or woman is measured by the choices they make, the love they give, and the truth they stand for? Because if it's the former, Congresswoman, we'll never stop fighting each other. If it's the latter, maybe just maybe we'll start fighting for each other. The room grew restless. Some nodded, moved by the simplicity of his words, while others frowned, their arms crossing tighter. Ak cleared her throat, trying to regain footing, but her earlier confidence had dimmed. She offered rebuttals about history, about the realities of discrimination, about the necessity of acknowledging wounds before healing them. And she wasn't wrong, history mattered. But Kennedy's words struck a nerve, not because they dismissed the pain of the past, but because they forced everyone to consider the future. What happens when acknowledgement isn't enough? What happens when the story of America can no longer just be about what was done wrong, but about what can be made right? The hearing ended, but the debate didn't. It spilled onto social media, television screens, and living room conversations across the country. Some accused Kennedy of oversimplifying, of dodging the depth of systemic problems. Others hailed his question as timeless, a call to unity in a fractured world. Later that night, Kennedy sat quietly in his office, the echoes of the day still fresh. He wasn't smug about his response. He knew words alone couldn't heal generations of hurt. But he also knew something else, that leadership wasn't just about policy, it was about vision. And sometimes, the most powerful thing a leader can do is ask the question that lingers long after the debate ends. As for Ak, she too reflected. She realized that while his question had unsettled her, it also demanded an answer she had yet to fully form. Could both be true? Could a nation acknowledge the scars of its past while still believing that every person's worth was rooted in their character, not their color? In the weeks that followed, Americans argued, reflected, and wrestled with that very question. But in that wrestling came something rare, a moment of unity and division, where both sides were forced to pause and consider what America truly stands for. Because sometimes, progress doesn't begin with the speech. Sometimes, It begins with the single question that refuses to leave the heart, and John Kennedy's question, as simple yet piercing, would echo long after the cameras stopped rolling, reminding a divided nation that the future depends not just on how we see each other, but on how we chose to define ourselves.